Good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of FPE Tech Assist. Today we are connecting a WAGO IP20 remote I/O rack to an Omron Sysmac Controller. Specifically, the parts we're going to be reviewing today is an Omron NX102 PLC to an IP20 rack. This should typically apply to NX1P2, NJs, anything configured in the Omron Sysmac Studio family. And it's important to note that we're using Ethernet IP with this remote I/O rack. The part numbers are shown below, but it's a 16-point input card and a 16-point output card. I have established a connection to all these devices, networked and configured. We're just going through a switch here, my PC, the PLC, and the remote I/O stack. Some housekeeping just to get reminder to configure the IP address of the remote I/O rack. You can do so with the dip switches set on the left here. In my configuration, I have turned on switch 1 and 2, which is binary 3, and so that sets the last octet to 192.168.1.3. If you wanted to have a different setting, you can refer to the manual as shown over here. Okay, the Ethernet IP section of the web browser, we're going to reference this information a little bit later, but I want to make sure this is kept handy. Within Sysmac Studio, I'm going to open up a project that I started with the NX102. The first thing I always like doing is making sure I set this to the right IP address, because when I download this project, I want to make sure the PLC retains the 1.1. And then from there, I go to Ethernet IP connection settings. I'm going to right click and hit edit. Now, if I'm doing this for the very first time, I'm going to want to install the EDS file. Where do I get the EDS file? That is on the browser. I go to this Ethernet IP section, hit download, and when you download, you get the zip file containing multiple EDS files within it. I'm going to use the one 750-0363 because that's the one I have in my hardware setup here. So that, please reference that one, but please use yours as properly configured. So just a reminder, by the way, if you need to install it, you right click over here, go to display EDS library, then you can click install and point it to the EDS file that you just downloaded. But since I already have it, I could just hit plus, type in the IP address here, 681.3. Scroll down to WAGO here, and just choose the revision now. And I hit add. Now, I'm going to do one thing over here. I'm going to click edit. And over here, when I hit edit, I have the ability to adjust these variable input output sizes. Because this is an I/O rack that could be almost infinitely configurable, this input size can change and the output size can change. So by default, it shows 5 and 6, but reality is we're going to change that to what matches over here on the I/O mapping section. So because I have a 16-point input slice and a 16-point output slice, I have 2 bytes in and 2 bytes out. So I'm going to change that here. 2 bytes in, 2 bytes out, and then hit OK. Next, I'm going to go to my global variables, and I'm going to make a set of variables for my inputs and outputs. So first, I'm going to call that WAGO inputs. Next, I'm going to do WAGO outputs. Now, what size and what data type we make is dependent on what we see over here. So I'm going to go back to my Ethernet IP section. I'm going to take a look at what I'm looking for. Oops, sorry, one second. I'm going to see, all right, I have 3 input bytes that I need, and I have 2 output bytes that I need. And how did I know to look at this? I'll reference that in a second. But basically, I'm going to go byte. And I said 3 input bytes, 2 output bytes. I'm going to call that as input, output, And I go back to the section, and now I can hit registration all, and I can select these. I have a size 3, size 2, I hit register, and there they are. Now I go to this area, I hit plus so I can set the target device connection. And that's going to reference a list of devices on my right toolbox. And this is a little quirky Sysmac Studio, it's look ahead, so that's where I knew the inputs are selected at 104, so that's 3 bytes. I just type 1 again, and that's at 101, so that's 2 bytes. Now, over here, I should see the drop down for my inputs and outputs, rather. That is not set correctly, so let me see what's going on. So that wants 3, 2, here, 3, oops, and 2. There it goes. I see my WAGO inputs there. Well, because that size has to match up, otherwise you'll see what happened and it doesn't show up. So we have 3 and 2, which is great. And then I want to go online. I want to establish my connection first. Communication setup. I want to do 168.1.1. Do a communication test. There it is, test OK. Now I'll go online. And now I want to transfer my setup to the controller. And I am going to uncheck this because I want to transfer the Ethernet IP connection settings. So I hit OK, and I hit execute. I hit yes to continue with the transfer. Switch to run mode. Okay, and if everything goes well, I should have a green light here on my PLC. I have no Ethernet IP connection settings, errors I should say. And if I take a look at my WAGO rack, I have a solid green LED indicator next to the NS, network status. So now I could just take a look at a few things. I want to go to my watch tab, and I want to add a couple of variables. Keep in mind that these are in bytes. And I could change the display format, so just have these all show up in binary. So while you guys can't see easily, I could turn on some bytes here. So as I change this around, oops, I could turn on a string of outputs. They are turning on my output card as I desired. Those are all on. And then if you look closely on the inputs, I can turn on some inputs, and you should see them turn on. So that's input 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So I have good communication with my PLC and my remote I/O rack, and everything is good to go. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.